Welcome, my lovely brothers and sisters. Welcome after a long period, but I'm taking it a bit slower. And I'm not presenting every day anymore because I hardly come to the things I also need to do. And so I have decided to take several steps back and have my focus on things that are in actuality quite important for us to be focused on. Um, and one of the things is focusing on getting the knowledge out and also getting the knowledge forward about the world that we are experiencing. As we all can see, we are living in a world where nothing is what it seems like. We are living in a world that is inverted, that is upside down, that is based in actuality on lies with a tiny pinch of truth in it. We are in a world in which we can experience that there are things going on that we do not understand from where the root is laid in and from where they are coming from. The coming period, I'm going to do my utter best to share some very crucial and important information that has been written in actuality also in the Gnostic texts. And for those who have the ears to hear and the eyes to literally see, if you are able to see this information in reality around you, then you get a deeper understanding of what this world is heading into. The majority of human souls, of the human soul group, has no idea how they are being steered up into believing someone's idea of this world. The one being that has created this world is a fallen archangel known as Uriel slash Lucifer slash En.Ki. And this being is the founder, so to say, of narcissism, sociopathy, and psychopathy, as well as Machiavellism. We are tremendously trauma bonded by this fallen archangel Uriel that has presented itself to us as the so-called creator of this world. But this creator had a problem, and this problem goes back to a long time ago. And this problem is in actuality related with the creation of the human soul group done by Sophia, the creatrix. And this is another topic for some other time, but I'm now giving you a short cut, so to say. So this fallen archangel got, well, better said, the creatrix Sophia she needed some helpers in the creation of her um, human soul group, and the archangels were helping her. The archangels were in actuality the ones that she created specifically to help her with certain specific jobs in the process of creation of the human soul group and the actual world that was mentioned for us to be in, which is called Tiamat. The world that we are in, known as Earth, is in actuality a piece of Tiamat. There has been a cosmic war in which Tiamat was blown into uncountable billions of pieces. There are human souls in the human soul group who have this memory. But the group of archangels had a leader, and this leader was called Uriel. And Uriel was an archangel that was already from the beginning quite proud on the fact that he was the firstborn and that he was taught by Sophia how to create life and how to work with genes, with DNA, with technology. And one day, Sophia decided to create a human soul group, which brought a huge panic and fear in the entire archangel group. But the firstborn archangel, Uriel, was in actuality the one and only one that started to question things to Sophia and started to ask for answers why she wanted to do this. And he, as well as his companions, foresaw that one day there would come a moment in which the archangels would not of any importance anymore. Well, that is, of course, not really the case because archangels are always needed, because as soon as a new world is being created by Sophia, she needs their help. So there was a misunderstanding, so to say, but this firstborn archangel Uriel, he got very jealous on the humans, and this explains also why it is stated in the Bible that God is a jealous being, because in actuality the God of this world is this fallen archangel Uriel slash Lucifer slash En.Ki. You all can read this, as you can see in the picture, in one of the books of Wes Penre. He has created marvelous books. He went through all the Gnostic texts and ancient texts he could find, did a long-term research, and what I'm going to do the coming period is in short reading things from this book, the Orion Book. It is a compilation of Wes Penre's first level of learning and second level of learning. And in actuality, this book is a very good book to read. It gives a good image, picture, background of what in actuality is what we are in. And the problems that started that are ancient started in actuality in the Orion universe, which we are part of. I am on a new journey, and I am discovering that a lot of things in this world, which I questioned for a long time, um, are so twisted, and yeah, it takes a huge journey to find bits and pieces of truth. And as a matter of fact, even the ancient texts, you need to flip them and you need to search very well to find the elements of truth in it, and then you need to make the connectional dots to understand, yeah, the picture that we are in. As we all can see nowadays, we are in a world that in which we see narcissism rising. And so I come back to this archangel Uriel that in actuality started to create an extreme pride and jealousy in himself, which caused a lot of problems. And one of the main problems that caused this narcissism in this being was in actuality the fact that he got in his mind an idea, got rejected by the creatrix Sophia herself. He didn't got the answers from her he would love to hear. Um, this all has resulted in a being that became, in actuality, the founder of narcissism, psychopathy, and sociopathy, as well as Machiavellism. Because during the eons, this narcissism in this fallen archangel Uriel started to become worse and worse. Um, and to go back to this day and age, we can see that we are living in a world where we see that humans are becoming more and more narcissistic too. This all has to do with the fact that we have been pulled more and more and more into the mindset of this fallen archangel Uriel slash Lucifer slash En.Ki. Um, and so we are more and more in this, we are, well, better said, we have been pulled more and more into his fantasy world. And so his fantasy became, in actuality, also our fantasy. Yeah, this is this whole idea of shared fantasy with all consequences. So this is also one of the reasons why it is of a huge importance to get yourselves educated in what narcissism is, and to go through many informative sources as possible, because each source has its own um, element of personal experiences with narcissism in it, which can be very learning. Never stay stuck on one source, always go through several sources so you get a broader picture of what narcissism is. So with this said, I'm going to start part one of this series, Cosmic Narcissism, and how we are trauma bonded by it. So this is in short the opening. And let us start with a first piece and a first part of the series. I start in this case in chapter 9 of the book, the Orion Book, written by Wes Penre. You can get this book on Amazon and other platforms. What I want to say is last, please buy this book, because it gives us a very good in-depth understanding about what is going on in this world and what the human soul group is about to do, and the disastrous step the human soul group is going to take. Adopting a narcissist's mind. I'm not going into what narcissism really all is. I think that is good to find out yourselves. Um, in the pieces that I'm going to read, the chapters that I'm going to read, there is some background information added to it, what narcissism is. All right, adopting a narcissist's mind. This world is becoming more abusive by the day, and the abuse stretches from regular people and all the way up to the top of society. It's as if abuse has become the new normal, and people no longer seem to understand what is abusive and what is not. Exactly because the line between actual abuse and the abuse that we see becomes thinner and thinner. So, well, better said, the people are no longer seeing how we should live, and we should not live in a very abusive environment at all. In actuality, the human soul group is here to fulfill an experiment. And this experiment is in actuality based on having ourselves learned compassion and loving one another. And this is something many star races have not as experiment. So the human soul group has this experiment to learn what compassion is, what loving one another is, and what working in togetherness is as a group. And there are more things that we as a soul group, human soul group, should have done. But the point is, this experiment that we are in is tremendously being interfered in ways that was not mentioned to be. All right. Still, in the last 10 years or so, the internet has been increasingly helpful with information about narcissism and codependency. So people are learning about the detrimental narcissistic personality and what it does to people in their environment. But why do I, Wes Penre, bring up the topic of narcissism in a book about Orion? Because it's crucial to understand some very important things about narcissism and psychopathy to understand the overlords and En.Ki in particular, who is in actuality, in this case, also this fallen archangel Uriel / Lucifer. But not only that, the information that he is about to give in this chapter and the next is new information coming from the latest research in psychology, and it is right on target, as we shall see as we move on. So let us see, what is abuse? There is not one single person on this planet who has not been subjected to narcissistic abuse in one form or another. We may have had one or two narcissistic parents, siblings, friends, teachers, work colleagues, bosses, neighbors, and the list goes on. And we all have been subjected to governments, media, education, social media, and more. That is all narcissistic in nature and very damaging to our emotional and physical health. Narcissism is getting worse, and this is all by design. The most damaging abuse happens in childhood and intimate relationships because we are so tightly connected to the abuser in either situation. I want to say here something. If you are getting more and more clarification about what narcissism in actuality is, and you start to inform yourselves and educate yourselves about this topic, then you can also see that each and every human being is 24/7 in a state of gaslighting. Gaslighting is going on each and every second of the moment. We are in actuality held hostage by a deeply rooted trauma bond between us and this narcissistic creator of this world, which is a fallen archangel. Many people think abuse is not an issue if people are not physically beaten up or sexually abused. Well, this is far from true. Although these two examples are horrific and leave permanent scars, there are forms of abuse that are far more subtle, that create even worse long-term damage to the target. Amazingly enough, but studies surely indicate this. So the more subtle the abuse is, the more damaging it is. And this is exactly what happens with narcissism. If you are in a narcissistic relationship, and I have experienced several of them, then you indeed are slowly, being put into this abuse. So it is indeed a subtle form of abuse, because in the beginning, you don't see it as such due to the love bombing phase and all that is going on in the beginning, that the narcissistic partner is doing to you and with you. So in the beginning, you do not see that you are in actuality trapped in a abusive relationship. And this is when you are in a narcissistic relationship that is in actuality covert, then this form of subtle abuse is even more damaging, because covert narcissists are far more dangerous than the overt one, because the overt one is expressing itself, and that is easier to spot than a covert narcissism. So how many times haven't women, for example, who feel they are being ill-treated by their partner, wanted to talk about it with friends or relatives, but couldn't because they could not put their finger on what was wrong, and still they feel horrible. So narcissism and psychopathy frequently go hand in hand, and we see this because look at the top of this world. Look around you. We are living in a world that is completely dominated by psychopathy, sociopathy, Machiavellism, and malignant narcissism. And it's about time that we start to see this, that we start to acknowledge this, and that we stop avoiding this. It's about time that we start to inform ourselves, educate ourselves. Because the more educated we get, the lesser grip this worldly narcissism, sociopathy, psychopathy, and malignant narcissism, as well as Machiavellism, has on us. A psychopath often shows clear signs of narcissism and vice versa. So both characters lack empathy and compassion. Well, studies have already shown that narcissists are very good mimickers, and so they can mimic empathy. But the point is, you, who is facing this, you should feel with your gut if this empathy of the partner who is mimicking this empathy and thus is a narcissist, that your gut in actuality tells you that the empathy that your partner is having towards you is in actuality fake. Narcissists can fake, can mimic, can mimic empathy, can mimic to be sorry for something, but their way of being empath is fake, is cold. So he says here that they lack empathy and compassion. That is not really true, because they can, but their empathy and compassion is cold. It's a mimicked form. You can say it's as if they push a button in themselves and then all of a sudden they can be empathetic and compassionate. But it's all fake. It's all mimicked. It's cold, soulless. And they cannot feel love the same way regular people do. So the narcissist and the psychopath keep their mask on, pretending to be someone they are not. And they are usually very good actors. So, which makes us wonder about Hollywood actors, don't we? Because there are actors whom are so good in their job that acting is in actuality a natural thing to them. Well, probably these actors are already from a very young age doing this. So this whole idea of acting is so natural to them that they don't have any problems um, to play a role, because they are playing this role already. So I could write a book on narcissism alone and what I have learned about it from personal experiences and from research, but that goes beyond the scope of this book. Let us go to the next step in this. Important about how narcissism is created. Let's start with answering the obvious question: what is a narcissist? So this is a much more complicated question than it might seem. Narcissism, according to psychological studies and research, is always developed in childhood. Usually the mother or a caregiver acting as the mother was a narcissist too. Narcissism has everything to do with mother attachments, never about father attachments. In each case of narcissism, the mother created the narcissist, not the father, regardless of how abusive the father was. Which seems quite logic, because as a child, the first 9 months of your existence is in the womb of your mama. So that she has more influence in this seems to me very logic. There are no perfect parents. No, because no human is perfect. But some parents did their best and showed their children love, compassion, and empathy for the most part, and let their children develop into individual persons, while other parents were themselves so traumatized that they also traumatized their children and damaged them for life. All parents are somewhere on this scale. Perfectionism is not needed to raise a secure and mentally healthy child, but there are certain criteria that must be met, and there are other criteria that are detrimental for the child's development. One characteristic in particular generates a narcissistic child. Then growing up as a narcissistic adult. And that is the lifelong mother attachment syndrome. This is not a clinical term, only a description of what narcissism is. But it isn't but isn't it normal to be attached to your mother? Yes, absolutely. This is how it works. So when a baby is born, the infant cannot distinguish between themselves and the mother. To the infant, they are one and the same. After all, they started out as being the same when the embryo is inside the mother's womb. In the infant's mind, the mother is an extension of the infant, and to the young toddler as well. This is healthy and how it should be. It is even so well pronounced that the infant starts crying as soon as the mother leaves the room because the baby feels they are losing a part of themselves. They get abandonment anxiety and they are afraid they might die. However, when the child is 6 to 18 months old, something happens. The child starts getting annoyed with the mother and wants to separate from her, if only for a short moment at the time. So the toddler starts crawling or walking away from mom for the first time since birth to explore the environment. Although when it is getting too scary and lonely, they return to the mother to get comfort. It is the same in the animal world. Then something else happens. For the first time, the little child realizes that the mother is separate from them. And this is a terrifying moment for them. Still, they get used to the fact and they now want to explore the environment and to separate from the mother, treating her as a separate entity that they can return to whenever they want or whenever it gets too overwhelming or too dangerous. They develop their individuality. This is usually the stage where parents sometimes go wrong. They do not allow the child to separate, and especially the mother, um, because many women keep their child very stuck onto them. And so they do not allow the child to go through this natural process of separating itself more and more from the mother, and so become more and more an individual on its own. Instead, they go chasing the child and put them back on their lap and hold them in position, embrace them, and prevent them from um, running off. They may even talk harshly to the toddler and tell them not to do that again. So the child starts crying and fighting the intervention. But some mothers are stubborn and will not let the child go. So the child never separates from the mother at this critical age, which prevents the child on a cognitive level to understand that mama and child are two distinct individuals. The mother continues being an extension of the child, and if the mother is narcissistic, the child is also an extension of her. So it goes both ways. This will create problems during the rest of the child's upbringing. The child will be very attached to the mother in an unhealthy way, developing a love-hate relationship with the mother. So here we see also why so many males have this hate against the feminine. It becomes a reach and withdrawal phenomenon. So a push and pull phenomenon. And we get what can be described as a troubled and rebellious child, sometimes violent and verbally abusive, because subconsciously the child tries to separate from the mother. Then, if the mother and the father treat the child in other abusive ways as well, such as not letting the child be who they are, but instead project their own goals and purposes on their child, forcing them to be something the parents want them to be instead of letting the child become themselves, it will get even worse. The child might feel they are not good enough and feel they must be perfectionists to meet their parents' needs. They become what is called the golden child, which creates unhealthy grandiosity, achievement, anxiety, and entitlement as a coping mechanism in adulthood and throughout life. Other examples are if the parents neglect the child or prefer one child before another, or they treat the child as an adult with adult responsibilities before they are ready for it. And this was very much the case in the family that I grew up in. Robbing them of their childhood. Um, there are many ways to traumatize a child and create personality disorders in the child, which will follow them for the remainder of their life. But the essential thing that creates a narcissist, which is to not being able to detach from the mother, becomes a lifelong attachment to the mother. It appears that most people have some level of unhealthy attachments to their mother in adult life. But here we are talking about an extreme form of attachment that plays out in the shape of narcissism. All narcissists have mother issues. There is a second time in the child's upbringing that has to do with detaching from the mother and between brackets and the father too in this sense. And that is in the stage of adolescence or adolescence. This is the second very important time for a child to experience a healthy detachment from the parents, but again, most importantly, to the mother. The mother must let the adolescent child get the chance to separate, slowly but surely. If the mother again refuses to let the child become an adult, matters become even worse, and we will for sure have created a narcissist. So the problem with narcissism is that it is incurable. Once a narcissist, always a narcissist. Um, well, there are narcissists whom are open to heal themselves, but there are not many. You can count them on one hand because many narcissists do not want to heal themselves. Um, this is and has to do with the emptiness that they will face when they are stripping themselves off from this narcissism. And then they see that in actuality, they never develop their true selves. Their true self stayed stuck on the age of 3, 4 years old. But because of their defense and coping mechanisms as children, which they keep through their adulthood to protect themselves from what they perceive as a hostile environment, fear and paranoia prevent them from lowering their guard. It has to do with creating a false self, which we will discuss in a moment. All right. When a narcissist meets a partner, for example, they do what everybody else does. They create an image inside their heads of how they perceive the other person to be. Let's say the narcissist thinks this person is perfect for me. She has everything I have ever wanted in a woman. And this also counts for the other side, a man. Often she reminds him of his mother, either from the way she looks, the way she acts, or both. The difference between the narcissist and a healthy person is that the narcissist cannot distinguish between the fantasy he has in his head about this woman and the world outside his head. To him, they are one and the same. So he has this idolized fantasy about this woman in his head. But the real person who exists outside his fantasy does not exist for him. And with this said, the supply, because that is how narcissists see their partners, as a supply, as an object. So the partner is not a partner. For a narcissist, a partner is nothing more than an object. Object. Look around in this world. Everything in this world is commoditized and has become a commodity. Nature is no longer nature, it's an object that has been commoditized. Animals are no longer living beings, they are an object. And so they have become commoditized. Humans are no longer seen as living beings, but are seen as an object, and so have become commoditized. All done by this fallen archangel, Uriel slash Lucifer slash En.Ki, that has seen and called itself the creator of this patriarchal matrix that we are in. And so this fallen archangel is now trying to get everyone on board in his fantasy world. And here is where technology comes into play, because all technology that we use is inverted and is in actuality Orion technology. It is inverted to be used as a weapon against us. All technology is not being invented to progress the human soul group into new levels of their existence, being and beingness, and into the new level of the experiment that they have to fulfill here on Earth. But this fallen archangel that has created this matrix, this patriarchal matrix, is now doing its uttermost best to fulfill the last part of his plan to pull each and every human soul into his fantasy world. And with this said, we then live in a shared fantasy. And we, as we can see now, are then fulfilling the fantasy of this fallen archangel Uriel slash Lucifer slash En.Ki. And not only that, this fallen archangel Uriel slash Lucifer slash En.Ki has another goal in his mind, and that is the total revenge on the creatrix of the human soul group known Sophia. And this fallen archangel has in goal the total destruction of Orion. And he wants to use the human soul group for this plan. So what he now is doing is, first and foremost, make sure that each and every human being is part of his fantasy, and so becomes part of his final goal, known as the work of the ages. And if he has as much as possible human souls on board with his and are part and has become part of his sick-minded fantasy, then he has a new army that he can use for the final for the final goal that he wants to achieve and fulfill. The point is that this fallen archangel Uriel slash Lucifer slash En.Ki has been stripped from all of its creational abilities as well as life force. This has been done by the creatrix Sophia herself, with all consequences, because now this fallen archangel and his cohorts are no longer able to create by themselves. So they now need the humans to do this for them. And so what is in the plan is in actuality to strip the human souls also from their creative abilities and from their humanness. This is exactly what we see. This artificial intelligence is part of a very cruel plan, and the plan is to have the human soul stripped from its humanness and also stripped from its creative abilities. And this is being done by enforcing artificial intelligence upon us, make us falsely believe that this artificial intelligence can do far more things than we humans are capable of. They know, this fallen archangel Uriel slash Lucifer slash En.Ki knows that we have forgotten whom we are, because he himself made sure that we would be in a deep amnesia. And it is this amnesia that we need to overcome. We need to remember our creatrix Sophia. We need to remember that we are a spark of her. We need to remember that we are human souls with a spirit, and that Sophia has given us spirit and also has given a piece of herself. We are a spark of her soul fire and of her. We need to remember this. As soon as we start to remember this, then we can overcome the deep amnesia which we need to overcome. As soon as we do this, we start seeing through all this that is going on. We start to see for what this matrix in actuality is. We start to see who is the real creator of this patriarchal matrix. or patrix, you can say. But before we can do this, we need to understand first, um, not only that we are in a deep amnesia, but also what is going on with us right now and what is happening to us, and what this fallen archangel Uriel slash Lucifer slash En.Ki now is doing with all his cohorts, known as the overlords, the overseers, in combination with the shadow government. And all of them are doing their uttermost best that we, the human soul group, is doing their dirty laundry, is doing all the creations and creational work for them. And this is exactly what we see. All these, the creation of these windmills and this whole construct of this digital prison, that they want to bring the human soul in, because the actual plan is to encapsulate and entrap or trap the human soul for permanent in technology. And so if a human soul is not waking up to this trap, being trapped into technology in which the human soul can never become free anymore, you are in actuality for permanently in hell. Because that is what it is. Because this fallen archangel wants to pull each and every one of us in his so-called metaverse, his own created new, you can say new universe that he has created, which is based on technology, nanotechnology, artificial intelligences. And to be more precise, this fallen archangel Uriel slash Lucifer slash En.Ki and all his cohorts that have fallen and have been stripped of their life force and creative abilities have become cyborgs themselves. And so this is what it means to become the image of God. What in actuality is happening is that this fallen archangel that calls itself the creator of this world wants that we humans become like him, narcissistic and a cyborg too. Why? Because they need the human as cannon fodder for their last plan, for their last goal, which is the invasion into the Orion, you can say empire, Orion universe, to destroy the creatrix of the human soul group, Sophia. That is their plan. That is the ultimate plan of this fallen archangel Uriel, that has this long nourished revenge on its creatrix. So this is why that the human soul group, over the uncountable thousands and thousands and thousands of years, slowly, step by step by step by step, have been pulled more and more into this narcissism, and are now becoming this sociopathic, Machiavellistic narcissists themselves too, because we see it more and more around us. So this is very important to understand. Because the narcissist, I continue, because the narcissist has this idealized fantasy about his partner in his mind, a fantasy, and not who the person really is. Um, I skipped a huge part in here because I, in actuality, want to go to this part of what is shared fantasy. What is this? Over time, the narcissist starts making holes in the victim's slash partner's boundaries, and he gets access to her mind. This is exactly happening with each and every human being here in this world. Um, the Our mind is more and more invaded. Yeah, is in actuality no longer being our mind anymore. And this is something that Carlos Castaneda also was speaking of um, when he was speaking about the Don Juan teachings. So over time, the narcissist starts making holes in the victim's slash partner's boundaries, and he gets access to her mind. He now fills it with his toxicity, his gaslighting. And this is exactly what we see around us. Lies about who she is or who he is, what she did or what she said. So, invalidations, programming, and projections, which is his own toxicity. He dumps on his victim, telling the partner that they are their fantasy, that it is their toxicity. So the narcissist fills the partner's mind with his unhandled trauma, makes them hers instead to get rid of them, and because he is because he's punched holes in her boundaries, she leaks out her own emotions and feelings into his mind when she gets angry or sad. So the narcissist sucks up these emotional energies, he steals them and depletes the victim of them. And so the victim gets depleted from its life force energy. This is exactly what is going on with each and every human we see in this world. We see more and more depleted humans. Unfortunately, he, on the other hand, gets narcissistic supply, i.e., his energetic batteries get filled up. So here we come to what was shown to us through the Matrix trilogy, in which it was stated by Morpheus to Neo, where he showed Neo, you are a battery. We, the human soul group, is a battery for these overlords, for these fallen archangels and other beings that are controlling and pulling the strings in this reality, in this world, in this patriarchal matrix. And it is about time that we break this trauma bond between us and the real deal fallen rulers and controllers whom are pulling the strings in this world. The abuser never apologizes because that is a weakness. Well, that is also not really always the case. They can do apology, but their apologies are cold and are not really meant apologies. They are mimicked apologies. I have experienced this myself with a person, and I felt clearly in my gut that the apology that this person was doing toward me was cold, was not meant, was more like, okay, I need to give my apology, so I give my apology. But it was not a really meant apology. So they can mimic this. They are unable to take personal responsibility. That is one of the most important characteristics of a narcissist. They do not take personal responsibility. Wow, look around us in this world. How many of the human beings are really taking responsibility for their own actions and deeds and for the things that they do? Not many. So we see this, especially in politics, where everyone is pushing the responsibility forward to someone else's plate. And that person doesn't want to burn his or her hands on it. So it's also pushing forward the responsibility to another, and goes on, goes on, goes on. So the longer the relationship with the narcissist lasts, the more broken, depleted of energy and exhausted the partner will become. And this is exactly what we see in all human beings nowadays. They are depleted, they are extremely exhausted, and have become also energy suckers themselves too, without consciously knowing that they are doing this. Which is a logic thing, because if the supply is starting to realize that they are losing life force, what is it that they are doing? They are searching also for life supply, which means as soon as they are in interaction with fellows, then they are sucking the life force energy out of another fellow human, which we whom are experiencing this, we feel that we are being depleted. All of a sudden you become extremely tired, exhausted, because you feel that you are being drained. The sad thing is that the narcissist thinks there is something wrong with the real partner, because the partner slash object slash supply does not correspond with the introject. So he can't see reality as it is, and believes his introject that he made up is right. Therefore, narcissists sometimes act so convincingly that the partner starts re-evaluating themselves, thinking the narcissist might be correct after all. This is also what we are seeing being played out on the collective level. Still believing in the corrupted government, still believing that the politician is saying something that is well meant, which is not the case. So the consequences of this is that the partner becomes less and less themselves. This is also what we see in the human soul group. More and more humans are becoming less and less themselves, and they get involved in a shared fantasy. And this is exactly the process that we are in. We are being pulled in someone's shared fantasy, and this someone is the actual ruler and creator of this patriarchal world slash matrix. which is this fallen archangel Uriel slash Lucifer slash En.Ki. And so we need to wake up to this, that we are in his shared fantasy. We need to wake the heck up, that we are participating in someone's sick-minded fantasy. And that we are being abused, and that we are being used as someone's battery. What is also something that we see on collective level and going on in the human soul group is an extreme level of fear, anxiety, discomfort. Walking on eggshells is also something that the human soul group is doing, but the majority, unfortunately, of human beings is not realizing that they are walking on eggshells each and every moment of their lives. They are walking on the eggshells constantly. What also is important, that we start to see and wake up that we are indeed following someone else's script. And this is in actuality also the case when a person is in a narcissistic relation. Eventually, the longer the relationship is during, the more you are being pulled in the script of the narcissist. And the narcissist is rolling out his or her script onto and into the partner slash supply slash object. And as long as the supply is following the narcissist's script, the narcissist can relax and the relationship continues without too many bumps on the road, outbursts or negative interference. But when the supply starts to wake up and sees what in actuality is being done to them, then shit hits the fan in the relationship. Because then the narcissist starts seeing that she is losing grip on its partner object supply. And this is exactly what each and every human soul needs to do. Start seeing through the fact that we are in a cosmic narcissistic script. And as soon as we start to see this whole fundament of cosmic narcissism shall collapse. And then we finally can get our earth back. And this matrix starts to collapse, because the more human beings, the more human souls are seeing through the fact that they are outliving a cosmic narcissistic script, and as soon as they start seeing this and stop following and obeying this cosmic narcissistic script, then there are tremendous holes being punched into this matrix. And so this matrix starts to leak and becomes depleted. And so this entire cosmic narcissistic fundament starts to collapse. And thus the grip of this fallen archangel, who has presented itself as the creator of this world, who is also known as Lucifer / En.Ki, and En.Ki is in actuality a title, and his cohorts start losing grip on us. So that is why it is of great necessity that we start to understand what narcissism is. The deeper we get the understanding of what narcissism is, the better way we are able to see through the cosmic narcissistic script that is being rolled out over this entire world. And the more we can say, we are saying no to this. And the more people do, the more people see through this cosmic narcissistic script and stop participating in it, the sooner this whole agenda that is now being created in a rapid pace starts to collapse. All right. I skip a part here. Let us see where we are. What is the time? All right. So I think I leave it for now. So let us discuss the last thing, which is grandiosity as a coping mechanism. Let me go through this. So after having conveyed how a narcissist typically operates, we need to go more into the mechanics to fully understand why she operates this way. And in this case, we can say he. So there are two main types of narcissists. We have the overt and the covert. And the covert is far more dangerous than the overt one is. The overt narcissist is obvious because he is a very dominant, loud person, very bullying. It is a very big bully. We can all recognize him or her because they are so obvious. They need no further explanation. But the second type, the covert narcissism, is far more difficult to detect. Why? Because these are the type of narcissists whom are very skilled in mimicking empathy, love, kindness, and they are very good actors in pretending themselves Mr. or Mrs. Niceness. So this is the type that Wes Penre refers to. They operate under the radar, so to say, and they often put up a facade outside family as Mr. Nice Guy or Mrs. Nice Girl. And sometimes as a philanthropist, always willing to help others and often going out of his or her way to be considered an extraordinarily good person. It's all mimicked. Most people think she is a very so-called special, doing more for other people than anyone else they have met. I skip a part. By being perceived as good, he also hides what is happening behind locked doors inside the relationship. If the partner starts talking about how badly it's being treated by her husband or his wife, Few are those who would believe this person, and they will think something is wrong with the complainer, instead nagging about such a wonderful man. This will isolate the victim because the narcissistic partner has presented him or herself to the outer world in such a way that not many people can believe that that person is having, in actuality, better said, that this person, when it is indoors, so to speak, can be a very yeah, nasty person. Um, and so the complainer is always being seen as the crazy one. So the and during the relationship, people have seen the narcissistic partner being overly nice and helpful when among people, while she or he has been sitting quietly in the background, looking grumpy, sad, or shy. Others may have wondered how such a wonderful man could have married such a boring and distant woman when he could have chosen anybody else. But they do not make the connectional dots that the partner that they see as grumpy, sad, shy, is in actuality uh, in a state of isolation. So, on one level, the narcissist knows he is not a good person, and there is a reason for this, as we shall see. So, a narcissist being raised by a narcissistic mother who saw her child as an extension of herself and never let him go was often severely abused as well as a child. In that sense, we could say narcissism in some cases is generational. It appears to run in the family. To be able to cope with this hostile environment, the child developed certain coping mechanisms. A child can never defend themselves against an abusive adult, of course. So therefore, to survive in such a harsh environment, the child needs to learn how to cope. Already at an early age, he develops a false self that he puts up in front of his true self. And this is also what we see played out in society, where we see a lot of humans in actuality living from their false self. This is now instead being done by the false self. The false self becomes a complete personality of its own, and one of its main purposes is to hide the true self, to protect it from the abuse. The false self then becomes the narcissist. This creates a person who is paranoid, jealous of others, particularly in intimate relationships, is also a passive aggressive person, is trusting no one, is manipulative, is abusive verbally as well as physically, and toxic in general. But to the outside world, it puts up a facade to hide his severe emotional wounds. This is also what we see being played out in society. He now believes, okay, he now believes and thinks no one can beat him, that he is extraordinary intelligent, and he never makes mistakes. He now believes this is who he really is. However, deep inside, he hates himself because his mother, and sometimes father too, showed him no love, and no affection, and he was constantly abused, perhaps beaten, neglected, abandoned, sexually abused, and always verbally abused. So the pain this produces in a child is, of course, unbearable, so he must put up his facade, the false self, which becomes his personality. And this is exactly what we see in society. Society has become so incredible fake, and this fakeness is being poured into each and every single thing of society. The underlying reason a person like this does not respond to therapy is because the false self is the only self this person knows, because the true self never develops and never has developed, has stayed stuck on a toddler level. Um, Already as an infant or a toddler, the true self went into hiding and let the false self run the show, because the false self was not him after all. So it was safe to let a fantasy take the slack. Then, when the child gets older, the false self is so programmed into the narcissist's mind that the person cannot get rid of it, and most of it becomes automatic and subconscious. A narcissist is like a predictable machine. Once we know how they operate, once we know how they operate, we can stop participating in this narcissistic script. Um, because we start to see that they operate constantly from the same program, and that they in actuality are predators. So this entire procedure with creating a false self becomes a double dilemma for the narcissist. First, it is too scary to look at his true emotional wounds. It is too emotionally painful. And second, he cannot heal because there is nothing to heal. There is no real person inside him anymore, only the narcissist. There is no one home, so to say. If a therapist starts breaking down the false self, the narcissist feels he is dying because his false self, which has become his only personality, is taken away from him. So that's why the narcissist does everything to keep this false self attacked and intact, I mean. So the narcissist is doing everything to keep this false self alive and intact. And this is exactly what happens on cosmic level. The cosmic narcissists are doing every single thing to keep themselves intact and to make sure that their false self cannot fall down. But this is the illusion that they keep themselves stuck in, because eventually the more human souls are seeing through this cosmic narcissism, and the more they see through this cosmic narcissistic script that they are in and have become participant in, and have been pulled into this shared fantasy of this cosmic narcissist, and better said, cosmic narcissists, because the overlords are part of it. And the more they start to retract themselves from it, the better, because then this cosmic narcissism can fall apart. The next time I will go into this topic of a lifelong search for mother detachment. And this is exactly what we are also in. And this also has to do with the total collapse, you can say, the attack on Tiamat, because our home planet was in actuality Tiamat, but that got blown into pieces. Earth is a part of Tiamat, but we became someone's prisoners. We have been taken by this fallen archangel Uriel, and we have become his prisoners. But in us, there is still, in our soul, there is still this search for this mother detachment. We, in actuality, should have been going through a process of detaching ourselves from this creatrix, Mother Goddess Sophia. But we never could go through this process. This process has been disturbed. So we are still on this level of infant slash toddler. And now you get to understand why it is so easy to fool humans into many things, because they are still operating from this level of being a toddler. Unfortunately, the majority of human souls were not able to grow up into becoming a more adolescent soul. The majority of human souls are still operating on a toddler slash infant level. So with this said, I end this first part. The next part I will start and begin with this topic, a lifelong search for mother detachment. And another thing I want to say is that I highly recommend you to read this book, the Orion Book, written by Wes Penre. You can see that I have placed a picture of the front cover of this book in the picture itself. So please buy this book, go start reading it yourselves, and make the step to see through the cosmic narcissism that we are all part of and have become trauma bonded by, and see through the cosmic narcissistic shared fantasy that we have been pulled in. See through the fact that we are that we have been pulled into this cosmic narcissistic mind of this fallen archangel and its cohorts. And I know that there are many people who do not want to hear this and still are avoiding this topic about narcissism and about narcissism. Wow. And who do not want to inform themselves. But if you don't do this, you are coming into a situation with yourself as a soul that is far more dangerous than you think it is. And we need to see through the actual plan that is going on and is being outrolled over this world. And this plan, lovely brothers and sisters, is not in our best interest at all. We are being used for someone else's narcissistic agenda, for someone else's agenda of revenge against the creatrix itself. We are being used for someone's plan of revenge. And it's about time that we stop participating in this cosmic narcissistic script slash plan of this narcissistic archangel Uriel slash Lucifer slash En.Ki and his cohorts, which means all of them that are working with him. All right. I want to thank you greatly for tapping in today, for listening to this. What I say, I will present this series in several parts. So the next time, that's part 2, I will start again with the mother, the lifelong search of mother detachment. What was it? Yeah. Thank you so much, and I wish you all a beautiful day. Enjoy your day and make something beautiful out of it. All right, let us listen to a piece of music coming from band Sound, which is titled Floating Garden. See you next time.